Welcome back into Live Now from Fox. I'm Ryan Schmelz. You're looking live at the White House, where President Trump has chosen to stop new strikes on Iran amid new talks. We'll go ahead and pull this Truth Social up from the president, saying the USA is locked and loaded and ready to go against the Islamic Republic of Iran at levels of military terror, strength, and power not seen since World War II. Despite this, we have been asked by Iran and other Middle Eastern countries to hold off any attacks in that the parameters of a deal have been agreed to. This would include the immediate, complete, and total opening of the Hormuz Strait and an end to Iran's nuclear threat. Based on this request, I have agreed for the future benefit of the world and likewise the survival of a successful and prosperous Iran to cancel the attack, subject to being able to rapidly make a deal. The country of Israel joins me in this commitment to get to work, everybody, and get it done. Thank you for your attention to this matter. President Donald J. Trump. Congresswoman Laurel Lee from the great state of Florida is now joining us here on Live Now from Fox. Congresswoman, great to see you. Thank you for joining us.
And great to be here. Thanks for having me on.
So what do you make of the latest developments we've seen with Iran? President Trump looks like he is holding off on any type of strikes in the meantime as they try to come to a deal. Do you feel optimistic we're at least somewhat close to some type of deal being made with Iran?
Well, I think it's clear that President Trump wants peace. He wants a solution that allows for a peaceful and prosperous Iran and continues to try to work to make that a reality. His statement last night is crystal clear. He's still focused on the same two things, which is number one, ending the nuclear threat. There can be no nuclear Iran. And then second, ensuring that the commercial shipping lane in the Strait of Hormuz is open and flowing freely. That was never Iran's to control. And it's important for the entire global economy that they are not allowed to manipulate and close down the strait. So those two goals, those two objectives have remained clear and steady throughout. President Trump has made clear that he will do what's necessary to keep America safe, and ensuring that there is not a nuclear future for Iran is one of those things that needs to happen.
And when we talk about this, and we've seen polling come out, there's a midterm election coming up. Florida's expected to be one of the states that we watch for. Obviously, polling for Iran is not very strong. The American people do not want to see this thing drag on. President Trump has said that he does not want to see this thing drag on. But how much time do we have here before we hit a breaking point with how the American public feels?
Well, you're absolutely right. I think it's clear no one wants this to drag on. Nobody wants to be in this position in the first place. But I think it's important to understand and think about how we got here, which was Iran continuing to be attempting to build a nuclear program and funding terrorist proxies around the world. Their behavior, their actions are what really brought us here and created that threat to the safety and security of Americans. We do have quite a long while, I think, before people get to their final decisions about the midterms. So certainly, I think the situation could change. It could evolve. My strong hope is that the president is successful. He's demonstrated that we have the capacity to engage militarily if that's what's required. But he's also been clear that that is not what he wants. That's not the preferred course. He's trying to make a deal that benefits all parties involved. And Iran needs to get serious about that, come to the table and get it done.
And you have a bipartisan bill kind of transitioning a little bit here. It's called the Stealth Bot Prohibition Act. It would establish transparency standards, mandate purpose disclosure, ban deceptive stealth bots, authorize FTC enforcement, protect digital infrastructure, and safeguard original content. As we said before, this is a bipartisan push here. Can you talk about this issue of bots in the general public, especially with those who are the most vulnerable in our communities?
Yes, so there's a big and important distinction between stealth bots and web crawlers that we're all used to and accustomed to. What this bill is really trying to do is crack down on stealth bots that are impersonating humans. That if these bots are out there, if they're collecting information, if they're engaging with a website, could be a small business, could be an individual, that if they're out there engaging, that they're transparent, that this is not a human, that they're not impersonating a human. And the reason that this is important important is that these bots are going out and collecting information and consuming information under false pretenses. And so the bill doesn't stop any of the regular web activity that we're all used to. What it does is say you can't go out and impersonate and pretend to be something that you're not. Very important for local journalism and small businesses to be able to protect their content and their intellectual property.
And how have you seen this issue grow? Just really, and it seems like it's something that really has just come up in the last decade, maybe even less time than that, where you have these robocalls, you have the imitations online of people, and this wasn't something. I mean, it was always available, but this now become just so exuberant and just everywhere in just about every single medium that we have. It seems like this is kind of at a breaking point too, where people are just so vulnerable for scams and everything else that can come with it.
That is so true. So we estimate now, it's estimated that over half of web traffic is actually these bots. And it's become easier and easier is one of the big differences. 10 years ago, you had to have some real know-how and expertise in IT to do some of these things and engage in some of these activities. And just like AI across the board, these tools are making it easier for all kinds of people, including some who are unscrupulous, to engage in this sort of activity. So everyone from seniors to small business owners down the street just need to know if they are being exploited or their information is being exploited and collected for nefarious purposes. And if you think about, like, if someone came to your door and wanted information about your house, about your family, it makes a big difference who that person is. So what we're trying to get out with this bill is that a bot who is coming to your website and engaging with your business or your home is going to disclose if it's not human and can't impersonate being a person if it really isn't. And wouldn't that be revolutionary? It's changing the discourse across the board. These bots that people think are actually people communicating with them out there.
And right now, is there really an avenue to prosecute when this does happen?
There really is not. And we are working on overall in Congress looking at what kind of framework should exist for artificial intelligence. And here, this bill doesn't even ban this behavior. It just says, hey, if this is what you're engaged in, you need to be clear and transparent and open with the people you're interfacing with. And that kind of transparency is what will build confidence in AI and in the digital ecosystem so that people still feel safe engaging in transactions, putting information out there, so that they know who they're engaging with when someone comes along.
And a little off topic here, but something that kind of is in a similar framework here. You've been close with Paris Hilton working on legislation related to deep fakes and the false impersonation of people online. What kind of issue does that present here? And how has Paris Hilton played into legislation related to that?
Yes. So I have a bill called the Defiance Act. It's a bipartisan piece of legislation that I have along with Alexandra Ocasio Cortez. And it creates a cause of action for people who have non consensual deepfake intimate images created and put out there. As right now, anybody with a laptop can create these images without consent, and they're proliferating, particularly for women in public facing jobs. And we were so fortunate that Paris Hilton, she has long been an advocate for people who are exploited, people who are victims of these types of crimes. And she heard about this bill, was willing to engage. She came to Washington to advocate with us. She has just been an incredible partner and an advocate for this issue.
And what's interesting too is I've kind of talked on a couple radio stations about this, how I've seen in my time when I was on Capitol Hill, these celebrities would come to the Hill, and you'd be able to see celebrities, whether it be Tim Tebow, who you've also partnered with on legislation that has been passed into law, the Renewed Hope Act, or somebody like Paris Hilton, is that they're kind of able to, I think, get lawmakers to put their differences aside and kind of get them to work together in a way that if they weren't involved, that might not be as possible as it could be.
It is such a reminder of the things that unite us. When one of these people comes who's a cultural icon, it really does remind us, oh my goodness, we all were interested in, the Gators or the television shows and Celebrity of Paris. There are so many things that we do have in common. And so people are typically excited to take these meetings. And one thing I'll say about both Paris Hilton and Tim Tebow, they had incredibly deep knowledge of the legislation itself. So not only do they help elevate attention to an important cause, in both circumstances, they understood the policy, they could talk about the legislation, they understood who was being affected and had worked extensively with the victims. So they were incredibly powerful advocates to have standing alongside us.
All right, Congresswoman Laurel Lee, final word, anything you'd like to add before we let you go?
Well, I just wanted to tell you how much I appreciate you covering the news of the day. It's always great to see you.
Hey, absolutely. Thank you so much, Congresswoman. Congresswoman Laurel Lee from the great state of Florida, friend of Live Now from Fox. We hope you join us again in the near future, and thank you for your time on this Sunday.
We'll see you soon.
All right, let's go ahead and try to get our next commercial break in. We'll be right back in just 2 minutes. Stay with us.